I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm kind of tired of these lying Western females. Hi, just an average guy here to explain why I really hate these type of women. And you know what? She was much better just being a parrot for the actual truth, fueled talking points that she was saying when she used to be working at the Daily Wire. Before she threw a fit about everything, and it turns out it was nothing at all that she even said it was. I am, of course, talking about Brett Cooper. Now, some things may or may not be in certain ways when it comes to her separation from certain things, but at the same time, it does not excuse everything that she is saying that absolutely just isn't true. I mean, it's just not. So therefore, I'm jumping in and throwing my hat into the freaking ring because it's time to make this little bird sing. But before I absolutely lambast and completely destroy this closet Western female feminist, hypergamist girl, all right, really quickly, Discord, it's a thing. You can send requests directly to me for anything else that's actually more fun. And there's a meme channel, I don't even know what that is. And the Brigade Assembly area where we get news reports, and you can talk to everybody else on the channel and people of like mind, or you can just scream and yell at me on the general voice chat when I do live streams. Or debate about how I'm somehow a Nazi, even though I'm part Jew. That stuff is fun too. That being said, average guy here to tear apart Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper, we don't need a baby boom. We need this, episode 70. I was excited for her show until I started seeing her true colors, and then found out she was nothing like whatever it is she acted and pretended like she was when she was at the Daily Wire at the comment section. Now I actually feel somewhat sorry for Reagan in a certain way. God damn it, wish I wasn't such a fool that day. But anyway, let's jump in. Let's jump in. Look, I like some of what Brett says, but I'm really tired of this Western female freaking feminist hive mind in the closet pretending like you're conservative and traditional while still doing the non-traditional, non-conservative shit. So let's jump in and let's destroy her, shall we?
So marriage is not just...
Oh my God, it's low. I don't like that. Let's go.
a lifestyle choice. It is the infrastructure for a family. And that infrastructure is quickly collapsing, and so are the birth rates.
It's not quickly collapsing. It already has. All right. And she's not going to address any of the truthful parts of this because she's trying to pander to both sides and grift for both sides of the gender thing when it's clearly one-sided and very clearly one-sided in the way that a slaughter in a war is one-sided. But she's not going to address any of that. I guarantee you that. But anyway, it's already collapsed, and it had already began. This is way back in the 70s, right? Excuse me. Tea with honey. It's great for you. Love it. Especially if it's hot. No sugars or extra sweeteners here for me, you see. With that being said, it's already done. It's already done. And guess who it was that pushed to destroy it? Well, you're looking at one of them on the screen over here. Repeal the 19th Amendment.
Here's why. So if you've been following the news over the last year, if you've watched any of my videos, then you've probably heard about the birth rates falling and how that is such a big issue, not just in America, but around the world. It is something that countries around the globe, from here to Korea, are dealing with on a massive scale. But here is what nobody...
And before she jumps into the next point that she's going to falsely apply and completely mess up, you know why this is going on all across the entire Western-influenced world? Well, what is it that has infected all these other countries that originated from the U.S.? Feminism. Feminism. The 4B movement. What was the other freaking one? What was the other? There was the 4B movement that started in Korea. Well, technically, it started in China before Korea. But all of it originates from feminism, which is the female, arm of leftism. That's not even a joke. Everybody that sponsored, pushed for, and fought and committed terrorist acts to get across leftism, all of them came together to create feminism so that they could get women on board with leftism and then they could work on destroying the West. But anyway, that's the long and short of it.
What he is actually talking about. And that is the fact that Americans' desire for large families has continued to increase. Take a look at this graph. In blue, you'll see that that is 3 or more children. And while there was a massive decline in the 70s and 80s, that number of people that are wanting 3 or more children has been steadily increasing since around 2008, 2010.
One thing you'll notice about this graph is that there's an intersection point. That intersection point is around very particular times. It was right before women started entering the workforce en masse. But they were starting to because legislation was coming down the pipe. On top of that, some of the most major feminist waves, I would say, well, they call them waves now in a sense of like different, advancements of the full plan of the movement. Feminism was not started as an equality movement. Let's just nip that in the. It was not. It was not started as an equality movement. That was never the intention, period. So anyone who tells you that's a liar. You can go ahead and look up the origins of feminism. Go ahead, study it. It takes months. I know it sucks. A lot of information to take in, and AI is going to lie to you because of who its programmers are. So it's artificial. Duh. But the intersection point was around a very interesting series of events where feminism was pushed over the threshold and catapulted into the stratosphere. And that's where you see everything falling down, is beginning around this period of time. Oh, and what happened between 1970 and 1974? Women got into the workforce. So therefore, who the hell is at home taking care of the kids? Oh, they can't because they're working for themselves. Got it, right? And therefore, you see the end result of that with the typical narcissistic, egotistical, selfish, self-centered, baby murdering, abortion lover, misandrist, pro-leftism, average Western female you get today. But anyway, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet for all of that because it's a long video.
Definitely took off around 2015. So based on this graph and based on the statistics, people do still want to have families. They want to have children. And despite this desire for children, fertility rates in the United States have continued to drop. They have dropped from 2.1 to 1.6.
Now, here's the thing, is that the drop in those rates is not taking into account abortions. When you look at the data, you collate it, you combine it, and you analyze it from all sources you could possibly find. It takes a while to do this, I know. I've done this research already. It sucks. It's a freaking slog. It's worse than having to read all the white pages of every company ever possibly you can conceive of, trying to figure out if they're still doing bridge DEI bull or not. It's worse than that. Way worse. But at the end of all of that research, I came to this conclusion. They're not counting abortion because they don't count conceived life as life. They don't count them as living. Their definitional thing that they go for is a clump of cells. Well, definitionally, you and me are clumps of cells, meaning we're also not alive or human by that standard either, which makes no sense. But anyway, when I got down to the very root of all of that and the conclusion of the data, Western females alone literally aborted 3/5 of Gen Z. I'll say that again. Close to 75% of Gen Z was aborted because your average Western female treats abortion as contraception for convenience. No freaking wonder why the birth rate is so incredibly low. But they're not going to factor that in because they do not consider conceived life at all. Just a clump of cells. Well, here's the thing, right? If you use their logic, and this is why they're okay with murdering their political opponents, the Democrats. If you follow that logic to its ultimate logical conclusion, then you and I are clumps of cells, and I should be able to abort you for the convenience of my life at any point. let's continue.
So, if it's not that people just don't want kids, then what is it? We're going to talk about that. Before we do, though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to our channel if you've not already, and of course, ring that notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date on every single one of our episodes. And if you want to be in the know about all live events and upcoming things that we are doing, make sure to check out brettcooper.com. That will be the hub for all of that information. So,
oh, by the way, for those who were asking last time, the nose thing, I'm training my son a little bit on boxing, and he actually slipped through my guard and bopped me one real good. So, kind of proud of that one. But don't tell him that. That being said, let's continue.
of course, if you pay attention to the culture war, if you are involved in the socio-political landscape, all the discourse that happens on X, then you will probably see people on the left blaming the fertility crisis on climate change or the economy. The right will also blame the economy, but they'll also say that it is about health and the fact that women cannot have children anymore or they're starting too late. And there probably is some truth to all of this, based on individuals and what people's values are. Like, I'm sure that those are all factors. But today, I don't want to talk about that. I've done plenty of episodes on
Let's go back to that real quick.
the socio-political landscape, all the discourse that happens, or the economy. The right will also blame the economy.
So it's only the economy if you want to live like the rich and wealthy, keeping up with the Joneses. Now, everything is expensive. That is true. Hell, I'm suffering from it too. And I'm a retiree. And I have to make a second career very soon here, or it's doom forever for me. And I don't want that for my son. I want to give him something better. But if I can't, then I'll at least try to keep on trying. That's about it there. That being said, sure, it's partly the economy. If, and I mean if, you want to keep up with the Joneses. Look, it's not the best. It's not the greatest, but I provide for my son a good life. He's got schooling. Private and at home with dad, right? He gets more time with his parents. He has food. He's got shelter. He has conveniences like electronics, right? Xbox and TV and toys and everything, right? He's got a bike, all of that. And he and I go shooting. We box, we train, we go run, bike. We are still able to do everything. We're just not rich. That seems to be a consistency thing, and it usually seems to be driven by Western females because they want to have the same lifestyle as if they were married to a millionaire, when the vast majority are not millionaires and never will be. Right? That's just a fact of reality. That's it. That's all. However, it's doable. If I've been homeless a few times and was still able to provide a good, a quality of life for my son, good enough to where he is happy, that's all you need. If you want more, then sadly, in this economy especially, you're most likely not getting it. That's the truth of the matter. And it seems like consistently, whenever I look into every single bit of reporting on any of this period, when it comes to people addressing the economy, it's because they want more, or they try to go past what they have, spending out of their means, spending money on frivolous shit that nobody truly needs. I thrift all the damn time. Sometimes I go to free places, right? And that supplements everything else. And then whatever else I get, cheap. We don't need nothing fancy. We don't need nothing expensive. And yeah, it'd be nice to have more to leave something for my son. But when I'm gone, he gets a lot of money. So there's that. So that will be most likely what I end up leaving him. The thing is that if you wanted more, well, there's a reason why almost everybody that's in the millionaires and above, hell, even the topmost 100,000aires, okay? The 100,000ths of earners in the top 75th percentile, they're all old. The vast majority, very few of them are young. They spent their whole entire lives getting there. Because for your average person, that's what it takes. However, they have basically no home life. They're estranged from the family. They don't have a good family, work-life balance, none of that stuff. And you have to sell your soul to get even farther. So it's a choice to be made. Now on the left, the vast majority, they want to all be millionaires or just get everything for free. On the right, everybody wants to work for it. They just want the opportunity, chance, and the fair equal treatment in order to try for it. Big difference there. But when it comes to the end of the day of the data, it's mostly Western females that want the Instagram model, fake social media millionaire keeping up with the Joneses life. They want to be Melania Trump without earning it. That's your average Western female, sadly. Let's continue.
But they'll also say that it is about health and the fact that women cannot have children anymore, or they're starting too late. And there probably is some truth to all of this, based on individuals and what people's values are. Like, I'm sure that those are all factors. But today, I don't want to talk about that. I've done plenty of episodes on that back on comment section here. We have talked about that ad nauseum. Today, I want to turn your attention to what.
And I haven't seen those yet, but I'm going to start checking them out because I saw snippets of this and it just sent me through the stratosphere. Because of not only just how erroneous it is, but how pandery, grifty, fake, and false she's being. And disingenuous. She's speaking from the point of view of someone who was always rich and wealthy. She was a child actor. Her mom was in the entertainment business. They've always been rich and wealthy. And she married someone who was rich and wealthy. So, yeah, that's what she's coming from. She doesn't know nothing about the average Joe and Jill. Nothing. At all. Therefore, she just can't relate to them.
I believe, in my opinion, is potentially the biggest root cause. I don't think that our society and our country has just a fertility issue. I think that we have a marriage issue that is now leaning into and causing this fertility crisis.
It's not so much fertility either, right? Women can choose a guy from school or high school or whatever and get married young and start building a family and having kids and going through those struggles of existence that are natural and frickin' normal, right? Disney screwed this up for so many people because there's this fantasy that there's the perfect man. That doesn't exist. Even Henry Cavill has women that don't like him and men that don't like him. There is never at any point in time anyone ever that's perfect. Even Keanu Reeves, right, who's basically the reincarnation of Jesus in different form, even he has a forever girlfriend and will never get married. Why? Well, because he knows that if he gets married, then any woman that gets that chance with him is going to steal everything from him they possibly can, no matter how good he is. So yeah, there's no such thing. There's this fantasy that was made by Hollywood, by Disney, Marvel, whatever, that it is possible for every single female to find the perfect man, period. When instead, people used to look for someone that they could get along with, communicate with, and that they would reciprocate with. Point blank, simple as. Right? The reality is this. At the beginning of our being, we are two animals who might like to coexist. It's pretty simple as. We try to be more, right? Therefore, we are human, not just animal, mammal. That's humanity. We try to do more and be more, that's all good and well, right? The pursuit, look, perfection is not achievable. That's period, not real at all. And Western females refuse to give up this fantasy, even though reality smacks them in the face with it all the time. Perfection is not actually attainable. Even in religion, there's nothing that says, there's this perfect thing. Not even God is described as perfect. Above us, yes. Greater than us and all that, yes. Omni, whatever, sure. But perfect? Absolutely not, nor does he pretend to be. But the pursuit of perfection is still a worthy one. And that's how we improve. That's how we progress. And that's how we move forward to the future, doing better constantly. But to expect the fantasy to meet reality and the two not to collide and destroy one and not the other, yeah, no, that's obviously not flying, is it? Anyway, let's continue.
Because it's not wrong. The fertility rates have been dropping for decades. What, people like Donald Trump and JD Vance and Elon Musk are talking about, what they are signaling the alarm bells about, like, that is all real. That is happening. However, the most notable drop was among women between 20 and 24 years old, while it did increase among women between 25 and 29 year olds slightly, but there was a much bigger increase between women 35 to 39 years old.
So here's the thing, right? This clearly shows basically everything that's reflected in social media app data alone. So when you take social media app data, all of it, you control for female-only centered everything essentially, right? The data for females only, and you extract men from that. You throw them away. What you find out is that the vast majority of these women, right, 25 through 39, it's famous videos now. It's these women who are like, where are all the good men? Right? Oh, it's too late for me to start a family. I can't conceive. I'll have to adopt, or I'm better alone. Blah 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 blah. You know the drill, right? I'm pretty sure you know it by now. It's because these women are trying to be the men that they want. Pursuing a career, becoming highly successful, influential, and powerful, lots of money, lots of materialistic things, accomplished, successful, tall and handsome, all that, right? That's what women have become now. In order to achieve that in the business world, they have to be masculine. But then it becomes a permanent state of being. They lose their femininity. They lose their maternal capacity as well. So therefore, it should be no surprise, right? Not to mention, these girls are trained from a young age. You deserve everything. You can do no wrong. You are a princess. Everybody can be a princess. Like Oprah said, you can have a car. You get a car. You get a car. Everybody gets a car. Socialism and leftism in a freaking nutshell right there. They've been raised under this fantasy that they deserve the world when they have done nothing for it. And men naturally do not care that you have millions of dollars. Well, real men don't. Simps, well, they're not real men. They're boys that never grew up. And they never became men. Thus, I call them males. You can be male and not a man. That being said, your average man doesn't care. Are you lovable? Would you be a good mother? Will you help me and support me? Will you be my partner through sickness and in health, for bad or good, for worse or better, till death do us part, and then probably even beyond that? They don't care about your money. They don't care about your job. Look, we do. Again, we would happily date a girl with nothing. And then provision, protect, and provide, and be fruitful. Happily so. Men have literally conquered whole nations for such a woman. So yeah, when you go through all the social media app data alone, you're not even counting all the other millions and millions of... There's so much data outside of that, but social media app data should suffice. When you control for female accounts, what they post, the trends they follow, all of it, you get the exact same flat line all the way across. And it's all of them regretting it or convincing themselves they're okay with it but going insane, like Katy Perry or whatever. So yeah, it's no surprise that 25 through 39 and even above that, yeah, they're literally pricing themselves out of being able to have families and to be mothers. The other side of that is leftism and feminism, misandry, and abortion and baby murder. So yeah, and that's all Western females, all.
What is the reason there? Well, women are getting married later. We know that. Most women are not getting married at 20 years old anymore. They're not like me getting married at 22 or whatever it was. They're now getting married at 28, 29, and 30. And then after that is when they will start having children.
And remember, Brett Cooper married a millionaire. She came from money. She married into money. So her saying anything about the average person shouldn't really apply, but let's continue.
Therefore, lawmakers around the world are flailing. They are desperately trying to figure out what they can do to encourage their citizens to have more babies. I mean, we're seeing that in America right now under the Trump presidency. The Trump admin is literally pushing for what they are calling a baby boom with all of these incentives to inspire Americans, to make it easier for Americans to have more children. They have proposed a $5,000 baby bonus. Another proposal is to give every newborn a $1,000 investment account. And contrary to popular belief, it's not just people in more conservative countries that are concerned about this, like in Korea or Hungary. It's not just Republicans in America that are concerned. I mean, Zohran Mamdani in New York is literally running on the idea of free childcare to make things, easier for parents. But as I've said time and time again, when we have talked about those proposed incentives, I don't think any of that actually solves the root problem, because what we really need to turn the fertility rate around is a marriage boom. Well,
the thing is that your Western female now, since they've been given all of these advantages, all these privileges, all these unearned and undeserved, promotion into everything, right? Just being hired to do nothing jobs because you're female, and then getting all the high-paying jobs just because you're female, and then because of DEI and bridge, you get all the top spots just because you're female. Western females can have all the kids they want. They have all the money to do so. Why aren't they? Why aren't they? Oh, because kids get in the way of living your best life. That's why. Okay. Understandable. But men by themselves can't, because, well, we're stuck, between a rock and a hard place. Keep sustaining, maintaining, and building everything still, and just we're slowly dying out, or honestly, the only other option for us is going overseas, which I'm doing right now. Passport bros, hashtag MGTOW, hashtag repeal the 19th. Those are the only options for your average man. Your average man can't afford a wife because the vast majority of Western females are incentivized to marry him and then just wait a certain amount of time to take everything from him. They're not incentivized to be wives. They're incentivized to be extra priced gold diggers and prostitutes. And thieves. Taking everything from a guy just because you're female and the law says you can't. So the only option for your average dude, and for guys at all in the West, for men, is passport bro, MGTOW, or actually, yeah, that's about the only ones. Because it's hard for us to afford kids because there's nothing to help or support us. But there's a million things to help and support women, and single women at that. So women can afford to have all the kids. They can afford to have families by themselves. They can afford to do anything and everything. They don't want to, and the reason why they complain about the economy and costs is because they don't want to spend the money to do so. That's plain and simple it. Let's continue.
We'll dive back in, but first, a quick word from our sponsor. £1,000,000 Valid right is incredible. Subscription shopping for the time married. Start a new subscription today. Because here's the thing, guys. In line with what we were talking about at the top of this episode, looking at those graphs, birth rates are far higher among women who are married. 85% of U.S. births still happen within a marriage. So let's just look at some of these marriage statistics. So, for example, in 1960, the median age at a first marriage was estimated to be 20 years old for women and around 22, almost 23 for men. But by 2023, the median age at first marriage had increased for women by 8 years and for men by 7 years. And this next chart here is probably the craziest. This is the percentage of U.S. women between the ages
I believe I already addressed this way earlier in the video, so we'll just continue.
Of 20 to 44. So this is not just that they're getting married later, but 20 to 24 years of age who are married. That drop is insane. Like, we talk about birth rates all the time. Oh no, they're crashing. What about this? And I know the conservatives talk about marriage and we encourage marriage, but like, seeing this in a graph is astounding. Like, there has been a profound, huge cultural shift because marriage is no longer the default for young people. However, people do still want kids. Allegedly, they say that they do. They say that they crave families. They say that they crave big families with 3 or more children. However, they are simply not forming the stable relationships that enable it. And I think that this is an important
You can't form a stable relationship with someone incentivized not to be in a stable relationship. I'll say that again. You cannot form relationships with someone who is incentivized to be chaos incarnate. Western females. The vast majority of men reported that there's a few simple reasons why they don't engage with Western females at all, and that number is growing exponentially. Hashtag passport bros. I will continue to push it. If for no other reason than to know that, well, okay, first off, you're not a misogynist if you hate Western females, because that's Western females. The whole planet hates Western females. That's nothing new. They're insufferable, and they're literally being beaten by artificial intelligence. That should say everything about them. That being said, the vast majority of men reported the reason why they don't get married and don't engage with Western females. First off, marriage. Marriage heavily favors females purely and solely, no matter what. So a man loses everything because a Western female decided to, well, fake him out, or as I like to say, fake it to take it. They are aware of the marriage laws and divorce laws and such, and they take advantage of them in order to gain for themselves. Thus, when you look at the vast majority of new women or new female millionaires and whatever, all of them became that overnight, not through hard work or anything they did, period. They didn't earn it. They just became somebody's wife long enough to steal it through the legal system. That's a fact. So for men, the very first thing is marriage laws being absolutely unfair, one-sided, and completely and totally gynocentric. The second thing was the behavior, attitude, and demeanor of Western females. Them being so insufferable, so demonstrably just horrible, that we want nothing to do with them, period. That one pretty much explains itself. And then third was economics, but only insofar, right, from all the data I've looked at, collated, and analyzed, but only insofar as their limitations of provision, protection, and it was provision, protection, essentially feeling limited in their capacity to provide and protect their woman. A lot of men, unsurprisingly, are willing to share the burden of bills. They're willing to share the burden of work, the workload and all that. Or reciprocal, right? I go to work, I do all the hard things, but you make a good, nice house and home, and then that's reciprocation. But the larger majority of men are willing to split the difference, as long as they can get a decent partner. Decent, not amazing, not stellar. Not every man is looking for Gal Gadot or freaking whoever the newest one is, Sydney Sweeney or whatever. You know, they're okay with your average girl. But on the flip side of that, women are asking for a list of a million different things. You know, 6'5", 6 houses, 6 yachts, 6 figures, 6-pack, 6 times 2 inches, all of that, right? So yeah, the last part for men was economy. But anyway, yeah. So, however, the thing is that females rule the economy. So why can't they just afford to take in men and then do the gender role reversal? Oh, wait, they don't want to. Huh, interesting. Very interesting. Anyway, let's continue.
Point to touch on, because I think for people, especially on the right, we often talk about how our culture is just so backwards and progressive, and nobody even wants to have a family anymore, and everybody's having children out of wedlock. But the truth is, the number of people having children outside of wedlock, not being married, has not increased. It's just that people are not getting married. So delaying marriage, therefore, means delaying children in our culture. I guess we're still a little bit traditional, good for us, which ultimately leads to higher infertility risks and fewer total births. That right there is the crux of our fertility decline, the fertility crisis that we are seeing in America.
And it's all on Western females. And they'll never accept this, which is why I've given up on Western females, period. None of them are good or useful or conducive. And I say none, as in the percentage is so low that those who may be or might be don't count. The percentage is somewhere between 5 to 1% of the total population of Western females are even dateable. So I use this analogy all the time. Would you rather try to spend your entire existence, and the only existence you have on this earth, combing through the whole Sahara Desert, trying to find one frickin' diamond? Or are you going to go where the frickin' diamond mines are and just have your pick from it? Pretty simple, huh? That should about really say it right there. So yeah, the number of, when I say none, it directly means negligible number or even dateable. And finding them is like I said, comparable to trying to find a diamond in the Sahara. Not going to happen.
Why is that happening? Now we get into all of the really interesting socio-cultural stuff that we see on social media, all of the debates, all the discourse between men and women. Now, in another episode, we covered the red pill movement and why men are having a hard time finding women. I'm not sure when we're going to be releasing that episode because this is pre-maternity leave, Brett. But in this episode specifically, I want to get into the femcells and their side of things. But before we keep going, I want to thank today's sponsor. All right, Gallows News, the life stuff we're still like, go all ship struggle, say, us coming in your even in all night, time in your job, again for the women set off beam. So back to this femcell phenomenon, aka the women who are either accidentally or intentionally exiting the dating pool, kind of like the flip side to the incels that we see on the internet. These are women who are not dating, and often they chalk it up to the education and financial gap between the two sexes.
An educational and financial gap that was forced upon men and just freely given to women. We have to remember that. Now, partly this is on us because, well, we gave women the 19th Amendment. We could have allowed women to work and not given them that. We gave them unearned and undeserved power and privilege. And now it's bitten us so hard it's taken chunks. They've bitten the hand that has always kept them fed and protected. So many times the hand is thin. So yes. Again, Western females have all of it. They have everything. But they refuse to give to others. They refuse to be anything but selfish and self-centered, and they refuse to be wives and mothers. Why? Well, it's just like Eve in the Garden of Eden. Their nature never changed. Our capacity, ability to handle it and keep it in check has.
To be fair, a lot has changed in that regard because for centuries, women had always married across and up from their status. But what happens when women start outperforming men? What happens when they become more educated than their male counterparts? Because women...
They're not outperforming men. That's not a thing. If they were outperforming us, that'd be a different story because that implies merit. That implies they actually worked, strove for, and earned it, which they have not. They were given easier access to everything. They were promoted for everything. They were given all the best jobs, period, possible you could possibly get, just because they're female. DEI and Bridge specifically has them towards the top. And, thanks to all the feminist everything programming, they're given everything on a silver and gold gilded platter. While men still have to struggle, fight, and even work for it, not to even receive it anymore. So to say that women are out earning or outdoing men at all is not true. They're being propped up and pushed not to fail. That's a very different thing entirely. So no, they're not outperforming nothing. Men are being forced to perform more and get nothing. Women are being allowed to perform less and get everything. We're not the same.
Women now in America in 2025 outpace men in terms of college graduation and advanced degrees. And according to a Bank of America report from back in January, women are also outpacing men in both income and in spending growth. And what this inevitably creates is a bottleneck because women are claiming that there aren't enough high status men to go around because they still want to date across or up from their perceived status, which they define through their education and income, which obviously makes sense. But in my opinion, I think that the bigger issue here is not the college degrees or the income, but it's the fact that these women do not want to get married at all because they require whoever they marry to fit into this box and this life that they have created with no compromises. They are not willing to take any responsibility, to take any kind of accountability. They need you to fit in with them, no bending or anything. Now, one author whose name is Justin
One of the most salient and most correct points she's made so far. And I've already addressed this, haven't I? So I really don't need to say much, do I?
Murphy wrote on X that somewhere in high school or college, these women came to the view that maximizing their independence would be pure upside. No matter what happens, they will enjoy material security, and then once that security is achieved, they'll have the most leverage to get the best possible match. Quote, if I never get a match, I'll be fine because I have this career and I'm independent, but also this will probably help me get a great match because a master's degree and a career and a business are all unalloyed goods. This is not a particularly evil mindset, but it is new and it is essentially selfish, and it just happens to be based on a tragically false model of the world.
It is evil. Because in order to achieve that, you're sacrificing future generations. So, yes, it is evil. Also, the means by which this was accomplished was evil. Period. You are forcing from someone else, right? You're forcing someone else to lose so you can gain. You're not fairly competing with them. You're doing it by power of fiat to get above them. That's evil. Again, I'll repeat that. The means by which they accomplished this was not good. It was evil and still is. So that being said, right? And when I say sacrifice future generations, the fact of the matter is, biologically, women are meant to have children. That's literally their natural role in reality. They're meant to have kids. So they're sacrificing they're sacrificing the future generations for themselves, right? They're also committing abortion in order towards that end as well. That's also evil, no matter which way you look at it. But on top of that, they are refusing to give a chance at life to someone else. I'll say that again. By not having kids, they're refusing to give the chance at life to someone else. Now, is everyone well suited for it? No. But that's why we used to have communities. That's why we used to have families. That's why we used to have familial units with which to cohabitate, provision, protect, and provide with and for. So if a woman didn't like the fact she had a kid and she just hated the whole experience, there was aunts, uncles, grandparents, mom and dad, cousins, sisters, brothers that could take the children in. So that this selfish, broken female, right, could go do whatever it is that would actually make her happy. That's all broken. And that's lost to the West entirely. So the only way to bring this back is for us men to go overseas and repopulate the West with superior women from overseas, because Western females are inferior on every level. Anyway, that being said, again, I'll say it. The means by which this was accomplished for females is evil on every level. Period.
Once a woman has financial independence, she is less likely to want any man, while all the best men are less likely to want her, and at the same time, she now feels even more entitled to the best men. And that line right there, I think, is the most important thing that he wrote. And you'll see
I mean, that's very much true. Yeah, that very bottom line, 100% facts. They have priced themselves out, by becoming masculine, rich, and wealthy. If you don't need anybody, why are you looking for anybody? Pretty much comes back to that.
to the best men. And that line right there, I think, is the most important thing that he wrote. And you'll see.
And when you look at every single poll, census, voting, social media data as well, that's a very strong one, from Western females, what they consider the best men are in the top 10% of men, period. But on average, it's between the top 5 to 1%. So these guys are millionaires. They're tall, right? They have a bunch of material assets, and they make so much money that they're just able to do whatever they want with it. That's what they consider the best men. And it has nothing to do with the morality or their ethical or moral whatever, right? The thing is that they lie about this when it's not true. They don't care if they're good people. That's not a factor to your average Western female, period. What they consider good people is someone who provisions for them and caters to their every need, the princess treatment. That's literally it. I just realized the chat thing is still up. I'm not even live. But anyway.
A lot of people.
So yeah, what they consider the best men is strictly and always the rich men. Nothing else. And I get this all the time. For the females who are going to say, well, I married my husband and we're not millionaires and blah, 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 blah. You are the extreme rare exception to that rule. Extreme so. You're in the 5% on the flip side of things. As in you don't count. You're a unicorn for a reason because you're mythical to everyone else that has not found you. Right? So yeah, that's what they consider the best men. You know the song? 6'5", it's like 6'5", finance, blue eyes, trust fund, or it's like I don't want safe, tame, and boring. That's not love, right? They want the yachts and the freaking multi-million-dollar mansions and to travel around the world and all of that, right? Which is they're just prostitutes at that point. They don't care about the morality and ethics of these men. Thus, they'll complain about them, but given the chance, go back to them every time. Like the saying goes, they are more than willing to cry in a Ferrari. That should say everything you need to know. But yeah, they don't care if these are good men. They only care that they're rich, wealthy, influential, and powerful. That's all. Everything else is completely irrelevant to them. And when they say otherwise, it's only because they want to seem, to act like, to appear as if they're these angels, of which they're absolutely not.
People on social media, specifically on X, doing dissertations on this in the comment section where they say, men would rather date a Waffle House waitress. They don't want a woman who is ambitious or successful. That's ridiculous. I really don't think that's the point. I think that a lot of high-achieving men like women who are successful and are intelligent, have degrees, whatever.
That's an outright lie. The vast majority of highly accomplished men. Notice how she says she speaks about highly accomplished men only. She has not addressed any average men, period. Your plumber, electrician, your food workers, food service people, cooks, construction workers, your custodial staff, your maintenance personnel, your technical personnel, your IT guy. She's not addressing any of them. Highly accomplished men. All right, let's listen again.
Important thing that he wrote. And you'll see a lot of people on social media, specifically on X, doing dissertations on this in the comment section where they say, men would rather date a Waffle House waitress. They don't want a woman who is ambitious or successful. That's ridiculous. I really don't think that's the point. I think that a lot.
She says, I really don't think that's the point. Yeah, no, absolutely it is. That's what the vast majority of men want. All right. And I mean, there's a few that want a rich female that they're going to be subservient to, which, look, that's fine. No shame. No shame in your game, boy. You're just not a man. But you're a male, right? So, hey, go ahead and get that bag if you want. However, it's not going to last long and never does. Because that goes against our natural, right? Nature-given, setup, essentially. But anyway, it's neither here nor there, I guess.
A lot of high-achieving men like women who are successful and
high-achieving men, highly accomplished men. That's what she's talking about. She's not talking about the average dude here. And here's the thing, is that the vast majority of high-achieving men don't want the women that are highly accomplished, high-achieving women. The vast majority. The few that do are very few and far in between. And they also don't have the best marriages, period. So, yeah, there's that.
And are intelligent, have degrees, whatever it is. Maybe one of them wants to date a Waffle House waitress. I don't really care, but I don't.
And she exposed herself right there, right? She's very good at hiding the cracks in the pretense she gives off, right? I don't really care about the guys that just want a Waffle House waitress, wants a nice, simple, and she thinks of them as pick-me's too, which is funny. She pretends like she doesn't, but she does.
I don't think that that is unilaterally true. And in my opinion, I think that it is less that the best men don't want her because of her success or her ambition, but because of that entitlement that Justin touched on. Because again, what I was saying earlier, these types of women require that a potential partner plays second fiddle to her career and her ambition and her success, and that he fits into this perfect life that she has spent years creating, rather than being interested in building a life together.
The last part is absolutely true. The first part's false. Because she left a lot out. She says, she acts like There's not entitlement that comes with these women being gifted this high accomplishment, degrees and high career and all that. It was gifted to them. They didn't earn that. No, you didn't. Absolutely, you did not. The system took it away from everyone else and forcibly gave it to you. So no, they're going to have that sense of entitlement, being highly successful, highly accomplished in everything, period, because that's the vast majority. You pretending like otherwise is entirely false.
I think this is one of the most beautiful parts of getting married young, is that you get to create a life with your significant other. And so many people.
And coming from the perspective of Brett, getting married young as a millionaire already to a millionaire guy, right? She married tall, handsome, and rich. So, yeah, she's not talking about your average dude.
People are against that, and they say, actually, you need to go out and you need to have all of the life experiences. You need to get the job that you want and buy your dream house and get the car and do all the vacations that you want. And then you can find a partner to fit into that world. But that's so hard, because then you've created this entire life. You're almost like a fully formed human being, and it's much harder to incorporate another human being into that life.
Because the end result of that is inherently self-centered, selfish, narcissistic, and egotistical. We looped perfect circle all the way around from what I addressed already in the beginning of the video, didn't we? Right? And that's one of the few things she said that's true. She just leaves out a lot of the context.
I think so many people, especially on the left, and this was especially popular with millennials, will say, no, don't get married young, don't settle down young, because you need to accomplish all of these things before you get married and before you settle. You need to do the vacations that you want to go on. You need to buy the right cars. You need to get the right job. You need to buy your dream house. And then you can think about settling down and falling in love. But what happens when you've built this entire life by yourself, when you're so hyper independent? It becomes incredibly hard to fit another fully formed human being into that life. And so for a lot of people, I think that they just go, I'm just going to reject it because nobody's good enough. And in my opinion, I think that a lot of this hyper independence that we see in modern women goes back to that fact. Like, we have seen all of this play out in front of our eyes. I mean, Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy is a perfect example of this. We actually talked about her also in the red pill dating episode, because her whole philosophy is be
Also, Brett's entirely wrong on the red pill, but let's continue.
a man, have sex with whoever you want, build your life, focus on you, punish men for the things that you believe they have done to you or other women, and then you'll get around to getting married or doing the other things later. But right now, girl boss and treat them like crap. And these types of attitudes have led to an entire generation of women who spent their 20s focused on their careers and rejecting men, to the point where now these women have decided that they don't even like men. They don't even want men in the slightest. They do not need them.
And it goes back to what I said earlier. If you don't need anybody, why are you looking for anyone?
Take a look at this article published in the New York Times. It reads, "The Trouble with Wanting Men." And the subtitle reads, "Women are so fed up with dating men that the phenomenon even has a name, heterofatalism. So what do we do with our desire?"
And what's really funny is that Passport Bros works for men. Because men of the West, we're very sought after overseas, right? I went from talking to a few strong families in a few different countries to try and get an arranged marriage, right? And basically you're doing basically the same thing you do here, where you have a resume, essentially, all the things in your life, trackable and traceable. What have you accomplished? What can you do? How's your health? How's your mental health? All of that. What are your values, your principles, your beliefs? All of that? All of it's included in the courtship and stuff. When you offer yourself to these families for arranged marriages and stuff overseas. I was not counting on them also networking for me, or certain members of these families networking in case it didn't work out. I was not counting on that. Next thing I know, I'm getting emails, offers from women overseas, when I thought I would have to go to them the whole time. And I'll tell you this, they're hundreds by the day. And no, they're not scams. They're not spam. It's not some bot from, Indonesia or India or something. Or like a Russian bot farm. It's none of those things. When I reach back out to each one, they're verified, right? They let you know where they are, who their family is, and you can talk to their family as well, including friends. which is something absolutely strange here. And I have experience overseas. I'm a combat veteran. I'm a retired Army. I've been to every continent you can name. Yes, those two as well. And I've already gone all the way deep down into the diving of this to see if it was like data breach, dark web, whatever, right? Black market crap. I went through all of it and found out everything was very real and very genuine. We are greatly in demand overseas, Western men. The same is not true for Western females. In fact, they are almost universally hated around the whole planet. That should really say everything. So not only are these families that I started courtship with or are applied for courtship to, right, and for myself and my son, networking for me in case it doesn't work out, because they apparently have a very favorable they have a very favorable impression of me. But also, it turns out that these same people and these same organizations that arrange such things network for me as well, because they found me favorable. Not just as business, because they don't make a lot of money from this. They actually make a lot more money with like other things. But they do this as like an extra thing, and holy shit, I'm astounded. I knew that we were greatly desired overseas, but I thought it was just as a soldier. Turns out, as a human being and a person as well, which is quite incredible. And no, it's not a visa or a green card scam. They actually want you to live with them. They want you to come overseas. There's always the option to bring them back, but I don't know if I would come back. This country has treated me very horribly, and very terribly, and the vast amount of you as well. So why stay where you're hated and abused? So that being said, we are greatly desired overseas. So, men, Western men, passport bro, I swear by it. That being said, let's continue. But yeah, it's funny that Western women are locked in basically to the prison of their own making, whereas us men from the West, we are free to go about as we please, simply by dint of how good we are on average. Just something for thought.
Yes, guys, we finally have a term for this phenomenon, heterofatalism, or as I like to say, women that just don't like men. And because I know that we are all interested in the backstory, this article was written by a woman who, number one, was in an open marriage and then divorced her husband after deciding that she wanted to be with another one of her male partners who never wanted a committed relationship with her.
So yeah, this shouldn't even brought up as anything but something to tear apart, to shame, and to rip up, because this is part of the problem. It's a Western female doing Western female things on average that they do, and expecting to gain something from me or you to pity her over her horrible, evil decisions.
Her. Number two says that men are, quote, what is rotten in this state of straightness. Number three, ridiculed men over dinner at a vegan restaurant with girlfriends. Says that the men she wants are, quote, not wanting me badly enough, not communicating with me clearly enough, and not devoting themselves to me. She seems like a peach. And lastly, writes all of this in a magazine rather than a personal diary. And in the end, this writer can't figure out why she's struggling to find men who want to date her, even though she says they are rotten and they are not doing enough things for her. Again, it's that hyper-independence where you believe that the world revolves around you and everybody has to fit perfectly into your life, rather than just being a good human being and compromising and understanding that relationships are a dance, ebbing and flowing. But in this modern world with modern women, that is apparently just not a thing. But
one of the few things she has said that is 100% accurate.
back to the article, this author has turned all of this, all of her issues, everything we just read, into a problem with men, instead of taking any kind of accountability for her own attitudes or her own actions that are 100% pushing away men. Just listen to this. This is an excerpt from her piece. Quote, "You're flattening the men," a former lover wrote to me after I sent him a partial draft of this essay. Quote, "They never get to be real. They're used to confirm a story about disappointment and frustration." Her story about disappointment and frustration. And then she says, "This man and I met last fall when he was, like me, reeling from romantic rejection, and within a half hour we lunged at each other, as though by tact agreement to be each other's comforting, orgasm-giving blankies for a time."
Tacit. The word is tacit. Right there. Tacit. Not tact. How do you... I didn't expect to be, how are you... You read for a living. How do you fail English? Well, anyway, let's continue.
We traded obsessive accounts of the failed relationships, cheered each other through the rigors of no contact, watched Albert Brooks movies, belted Weezer songs to karaoke tracks on his couch. And eventually, I admitted to him that it had felt more natural to me to default to, quote, "wounded female," rather than assume responsibility for my desires. He, for his part, described a large looming ex whose adept use of guilt had left its mark. It was one of those moments of becoming aware, suddenly and fleetingly, of how we play ourselves and cast others to play opposite us in the productions of our internal dramas known as days.
The egotism and narcissism is so astoundingly high in this one. Because she thinks of herself as the actor in a movie, and she thinks of herself as the main character of the show. Theater kids, I swear to God.
I mean, guys, just like in reading that, she's so close. I mean, she just barely touches it, and then immediately the plane takes off again, and we go back to her acknowledged default of just playing the female victim. Because, of course, blaming men for all of your problems and just opting out of dating entirely is easier than taking responsibility for your life and your situation and working to become a better human being that people would want to date.
I like this side of Brett where she's grifting and pandering more than the rest of her, honestly. I know she's not sincere. I know she doesn't mean any of this. It's apparent from everything else that I've already torn apart in this video that she's not genuine or honest. But I like this side of her better from the Daily Wire side of her that's, now appearing than everything else, because everything else is, as I've already demonstrated, quite ugly.
Working to become somebody who is open to relationships that are messy and complicated and involve chaos and involve fallible people who are men and women. All of us are fallible people. And this whole attitude sounds so familiar to me. I mean, just go on X. It sounds like the incels. And this is how you end up with op-eds and situations like this. This was from the New.
She said this sounds like the incels. You know what your average incel actually is? Not one. They're labeled as such, but the fact that you accept that label strictly as says a lot more about you than those you have accepted the label for of calling them incel.
New York Times recently, "Men, where have you gone? Please come back. So many men have retreated from intimacy, hiding behind firewalls, filters, and curated personas, dabbling and scrolling. We miss you." I mean, it's so ridiculous. Do you actually miss them? I mean, women, you pushed them away. And then the men responded and said, okay, fine, we're out. Many of them responded kind of toxically, in my opinion. And now you are doing the same and you
Responded toxically. What she means by that is telling the truth. The truth is toxic to those that deny it.
somehow think that it's better. I'm telling you guys, there are two sides to this coin, and thankfully people have started to point it out. This is what one writer said in the London Times as a response to that New York Times piece. She said, "In blaming all men for women's romantic hopelessness, heterofatalism feels dangerously close to the noxious worldview of the incel."
Funny how she said not to blame all men for your problems. She turns to an article that blames all men for the problems women create or that they cause.
Incels believe that society favors women who can sleep with any guy they like, but who only date the high-status men. This is a self-confirming conspiracy theory that repels all women and, as a result, scuppers men's romantic hopes. How is heterofatalism, the idea that a straight woman's desire is embarrassing, hopeless, and imprisoning, according to the Sexual Health Alliance, any better? Heterofatalism and incel culture are mirror images. In the first, women feel like men are winning. In the second, men feel the opposite. Both simply cannot be true.
So an article blaming men for women women's things, but then saying it's both sides is doing... How is that? The math is not mathing here. How does that, okay, go against what was read earlier? It doesn't. It's still blaming men, but just portraying women again as victims. See, this is why I said I'm tired of these lying Western females. The game they play is quite the insipid one.
Mic drop. I mean, that's so perfect. This is not just a man issue. It's not just a woman issue. What we are seeing is complete and utter dysfunction. People moving like ships in the night, completely missing the point.
Both sidesism. Oh.
And I love how this author in the Times wrapped up this piece. She said, think pieces are in the business of diagnosing societal ills, but it's sometimes easy to forget that life goes on. People are not evil, and sometimes relationships just don't work. When a man is hurt by one woman and blames them all, his response is rightly seen as juvenile and sexist. But when women blame all men, a new field of sexual studies is born. It should not escape reasonable people that this is hypocrisy.
I'll read that again. Think pieces are in business of diagnosing societal ills, but it's sometimes easy to forget that life goes on. People are not evil, and sometimes relationships just don't work. When a man is hurt by one woman and blames them all, his response is rightly seen as juvenile and sexist. Note that line. Right? His response is rightly seen as juvenile and sexist. You know how many average interactions in the relationship scene your average man has had before he comes to that conclusion? And this is from all of the available publicly searchable combined data, right? It's where you take all of the data from all the census, all the polls, all of it, the research groups, everything. You combine them all together. You know how many average interactions with your average Western female, your average Western male has before he reaches this conclusion that they say is rightfully seen as juvenile and sexist because it's declared so by Western females? 7. This is based off of interactions on average with 7 Western females for 1 Western male before they come to this conclusion. I've dated thousands of Western females. And that was before and after marriages. It wasn't until I've been twice divorced and just quit dating Western females after thousands of dates after that I came to that conclusion, and so did the vast majority of men and boys. They're not basing this off of one thing. That's erroneous, that's false, and again, it's just feminism doing feminism things. This is a Western female that wrote this. Calling men's response to what Western females are rightly seen as juvenile and sexist, again, circles all the way around to only blaming men. And absolving Western females of absolutely all culpability, responsibility, and accountability for any of this. And Brett Cooper follows along by placation and saying it's both sides, when this is all clearly one-sided. Yeah, eat a bag of dicks on that one.
She's precisely right. And that is what feminism has bred in our culture. This idea that any problem women have in their individual lives suddenly becomes this big whole thing that we all then have to answer to and deal with when that simply is not the case. And men have a right to be upset and to point that out and to be angry. And women should open their eyes and realize that this is so hypocritical. But continuing to just point fingers and most disastrously, in my opinion, to blame individuals in your life that you might come across or meet in the dating landscape for these huge societal problems is not the solution. The nice girl that you meet on Hinge might not be the issue. So do not take out your huge cultural frustrations on individuals that are just trying to date and just trying to find love. So to bring this all back to the point I was making at the beginning of this episode, it is not a fertility crisis per se that we are dealing with. I think that there might be a crisis there, but that is not the whole.
There's a fertility crisis for women because of everything aforementioned. And men deciding not to participate. Why try and engage with the personification of evil chaos? No point.
Whole story. It's not just a baby boom that we need. It is a marriage boom. It is a men and women liking each other again boom. And the Trump administration, their heart is in the right place with trying to provide incentives for people, trying to make it easier for people to have children.
But they're failing to realize, because, Trump and J.D. Vance are both married. They're failing to realize the true problem. And that is the Western female is the true problem.
But I don't think that this is an issue that our government can handle with policy. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. In Hungary, in Korea, you might see a little uptick because you're giving people money to go out on dates or have babies, but it doesn't actually change the problem, which is far more cultural, and it involves this kind of divide between the sexes. Policy alone cannot change our culture, but we can. The way that we date, the way that we treat other people in our lives, the way that we take responsibility for our actions and our well-being, that is what matters, and that is how we can change culture.
All right, there you go. I mean, she was right at the end, just not in the way that she thinks she is. From Brett Cooper, we don't need a baby boom. We need a marriage and, women and men boom. Well, the thing is, marriage is an absolute, complete, and total nuclear bomb for any man that participates. So no point in trying. Passport bros, hashtag MGTOW, boys. That's the only way right now. And I'm a believer, 100%. I'm a believer. But that will leave that here for now. What did you think? What do you think? You let me know in the comments down below. I'm going to try to make this one a bit faster so that it's not as long when I do editing. Because I know people struggle to look at something for more than 30 seconds. I know. That being said, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And how soon should I get to tearing apart every other video that Brett Cooper has done? You let me know. All right, so you know what time it is. Be good. Be safe. All right, don't compromise safety and security for nobody and nothing. Death and disaster is only a second away. Do what you can today. And I will see y'all in the next one. I am Badger 7 Actual, the formerly known as Veteran. Blast Cat Badger out.